Shire Council on this 31st of March 2026. Can we start by giving Isla another big round of applause? Thank you once again, Isla, for leading us in the National Anthem, and every time I hear you sing, you get better and better. So thank you very much, and you sound much better than everyone in this room, and I say that every week to all our young singers because it's absolutely true. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you back here in the chamber or one of our events very soon, but you've definitely got a bright future, so thank you very much. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge our veterans and all those who have and who are currently serving our great nation. This public meeting is required to be live streamed on Council's website, and a person's image and or their voice may be broadcast. This is outlined in the Council's adopted code of meeting practice, available on Council's website. Attendance at this meeting is to be taken as consent by a person to their image and or their voice being live streamed. If any person attending this meeting, including members of the public, do not agree to being live streamed, you can choose to leave the meeting before the meeting starts. Council accepts no liability for any damage that may result from defamatory comments made by persons attending meetings. All liability will rest with the individual who made the comments. The recording will be published and made available on the Council's website for the balance of the Council's term, or 12 months, whichever is the longer period. In addition, the recording will be retained as a Council record. Members of the public are afforded the privilege of attending this meeting to witness the Council making its decisions. Individuals acting in a disorderly manner can be asked to leave the meeting. Members of the public must remain silent, must not bring flags, signs or protest material, and must not disrupt the meeting. As we get underway, can everyone please make sure your mobile phones are on silent? A person must not live stream or use an audio recorder, video camera, mobile phone or any other device to make a recording or photograph these proceedings unless you have prior authorisation of this Council. Thank you. Tonight's prayer will be given by Rick Sindell of Rouse Hill Baptist.
My previous profession was civil engineering, and I'm sure that most of us are aware that in the many development proposals by Council, the foundational requirement is good civil engineering. 2,700 years ago, King Hezekiah of Israel realised the need to secure Jerusalem's water supply in case of a siege. And so the king commissioned construction of a water tunnel from outside the Gihon Spring to inside the walls of ancient Jerusalem. It's been my personal privilege to lead groups of Aussies wading through Hezekiah's tunnel. In places, the tunnel is about this wide, about that high. It's not a good place for claustrophobiacs. Hezekiah's tunnel winds through solid rock for over half a kilometre. Over its entire length, the floor of the tunnel from start to finish falls a grand total of just 30 centimetres, 1 foot. From almost 3,000 years ago, the tunnel is an extraordinary example of ancient civil engineering, and the water still flows evenly through the tunnel now. In 1880, a Jewish boy was wading in the tunnel, and when he discovered a plaque at the spot near the southern portal where the two tunnelling teams first came together. The tunnel plaque was subsequently sequestered by the Ottoman authorities. I've been to the spot in the tunnel where the plaque was taken from. And then in 2015, I was exploring the Istanbul Archaeological Museum. In front of me, I glanced down at a glass case, and inside the case was the original 3,000-year-old Hezekiah's construction tunnel plaque. Some things we come across in life just stop us in our tracks. Stories such as Hezekiah's tunnel are a reminder for us that when Council works for the welfare of this community, Council follows a long, long history and heritage of people who have worked for the welfare of their communities. So can we pray together? Dear Lord, as we recognise the history over many thousands of years of people who are committed to the welfare and flourishing of their communities, so may we here be committed also to the welfare and flourishing of our community. We pray that the hills may be a place of safety, and support and amenity, a place where people and families can flourish. May we each have ears and eyes and hearts and wisdom and commitment as each of us fulfil our varying responsibilities. In this week leading up to Easter, in what this time may mean in many different ways to each of us, I pray for each of the members of council and councillors for refreshment and safety and a genuine openness to the people and purposes that are most significant to us. Lord, we give you our thanks for this community, for I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here and thank you for joining us for dinner. I really appreciated our interesting conversation, so I really do appreciate your friendship and your support, not just to me, but to this council and to the broader community as well. And thank you for your service and the work that you do, because it's truly valued and very, very important. So thank you very much. And happy Easter. I hope you enjoy celebrating the birth of Christ with your family and your church as well. Thank you. We move to item 1, confirmation of the minutes, ordinary meeting of council, 10th of March 2026. Moved by Councillor Jetty. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Huno. Is there any debate? No debate, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Those against? It's carried. Thank you. We move to apologies and leaves of absence. Councillor Jetty.
For Councillor Selvaraj, please.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cox. Is there any debate? No debate, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Those against? Thank you. Those apologies are accepted and a leave of absence is forwarded to Councillor Selvaraj. Councillor, is there any declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Uno.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to declare for item 8 a pecuniary interest as I have a referral partnership with Landon. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will be leaving.
You'll be leaving the room?
Yes.
Yep, thank you. Any other declarations of interest, councillors? No. Any petitions this evening? No petitions. We move to call of the agenda. Councillors, I'll read out each item one by one. If you wish to speak on that item or to vote against, please flag it and let me know. Item 2, LTF recommendations, February 2026, George Street, Box Hill, proposed pedestrian crossing at Box Hill High School. Item 3, LTF recommendations, February 2026, Box Road, Nelson Road, Hybrid Street and Terrain Street, Box Hill, signage and line marking. Item 4, budget review. Oh, Councillor Hazelden was quick. As at 28th of February 2026, Councillor Hazelden. Item 5, draft tower crane policy. Item 6, property dealings relating to development matters. Item 7, proposed acquisition part 24 to 30 Old Castle Hill Road and part 28 Garth Owen Crescent, Castle Hill. Item 8, Councillor Blue. Information and status reports, Councillor Blue. Councillors, can I have a motion to move item 2, item 3, item 5, item 6 and item 7 on Globo? Moved by Councillor Cox, seconded by Councillor Jetty. Is there any debate? No debate, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Those against? The recommendations in the business paper for those items are now the resolutions of this council. We go back to item 4, budget review as at 28th of February 2026. Councillor Hazelden.
The recommendation in the report.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Gretseva. Councillor Hazelden, you wish to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, just another report in the long line of similar reports which continue to paint a very satisfactory picture for the Hills Shire Council, a picture of sound financial management. Madam Mayor, in reading through this report, as I do the regular ones, I can never avoid thinking about the junkets that we read about from time to time. I think there was one recently about a sister city conference, and our ratepayers in the Hills Shire are never burdened with that sort of ridiculous expenditure. Madam Mayor, we strenuously resist pie in the sky projects. We've been burnt by that some 30 or 40 years ago. And continually we report significant operating surpluses. Madam Mayor, I am fortunate this year in having been appointed to our ARIC, which is the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, and at the last budget review meeting I spoke briefly about this as well, but I thought it might be relevant or pertinent tonight to mention my observations simply as an observer. I'm a non-voting member of our ARIC. The Audit Risk and Improvement Committee is chaired and has two independent panellists who I am increasingly impressed with for the way they bring scrutiny and good governance and probity to overseeing our activities. At the last audit meeting, the representative from the Government Audit Office was present, and he spoke very glowingly of the Chief Financial Officer and her team's work, which I think again is credit to that team, Madam Mayor. One of the issues that arose at the latest AREC is the awareness that we all have to have of artificial intelligence. And on the one hand, we think benignly of artificial intelligence and what the benefits it may bring to humanity. But at the grassroots level, it can pose a significant threat. And we were afforded a story about two local government areas in southeast Queensland that both became victims of the misuse of artificial intelligence, where through the use of a synthetically created voice mimicking an individual, the use of bogus invoices, which were almost pixel perfect, enabled the fraud to pass through the normal chains of scrutiny. And these are the sorts of things that our Chief Financial Officer and the team and all of the people involved in governance of this organisation have to be constantly aware of. It is a looming threat to all organisations, both private and public. Madam Mayor, I refer you to page 27 of the report, and let me just refresh my own memory of why I wrote this down. It was to do with the population growth, and we talk about the population growth regularly, Madam Mayor, but I noted under citizenship ceremonies there's a growing backlog of new citizens. Usually we process 120 new citizens a month. It's now we're budgeting, or we're expecting 250. And for all the positive things that this brings to our growing community, we are all aware of the downside to our burgeoning immigration challenges. I won't say problem, the challenges from immigration, whether it's housing affordability, the burden on public transport, our road network, even our playing fields. This growing population, and I think it's somewhere between 150 and 200,000 over the next few years, is something that we are going to have to continually wrestle with and manage properly. And then I note, Madam Mayor, the ongoing issues with relation to the gap funding for Contributions Plan 15, which now with the inflationary effects is now blown out to $207 million. And it's something that we don't lose sight of, and nor can we lose sight of. This is an emerging problem we have with funding infrastructure needs for the growing population in our north. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all I have to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Uno.
Madam Mayor, that was incredibly well said and articulated by Councillor Hazelden. And I want to pick up from where Councillor Hazelden left off around our burgeoning population growth, Madam Mayor. And it's following on from the Councillor's discussion around the citizenship ceremonies and that additional cost is around the increasing burden that, from an infrastructure point of view, that these residents that are moving into the hills over the coming years and decades, Madam Mayor, are putting on our existing infrastructure and our existing community resources. And this is where, Madam Mayor, we need to be working in partnership with both state and federal governments, Madam Mayor, because we as a Community Council, Madam Mayor, can only do so much. And I saw your comments in the Daily Telegraph about the lack of funding that has been forthcoming around Old Windsor Road, I believe, the $220 million that was promised at the last federal election, and basically show us the money. But, Madam Mayor, so that's a federal perspective, but then also from a state-wise perspective, Madam Mayor, that the state government has left us, unfortunately, holding the bag with our residents in the northern parts of our shire, Madam Mayor, around Box Hill and specifically around Madam Mayor, CP15. And the large gap that we have with the infrastructure that is required to meet the minimum requirements of those residents to be brought to a standard, Madam Mayor, that all other residents in the established suburbs of our Shire experience, Madam Mayor. Over the last few weeks, I've been spending a fair bit of time in Box Hill. I've been doing a fair bit of work in my personal capacity there, Madam Mayor. And I'm now experiencing firsthand for what our North Ward councillors are experiencing. Driving through Box Hill is painful. Annan Grove Road is bumper to bumper. Edwards Road is still, there's no curb and guttering. Terry Road is holding together at best, Madam Mayor. We need to be pulling together as a community, as a council, Liberal, Labor, Green, and demanding the state government supports the residents of these growth areas where the lot size are 250, 300 square metres, Madam Mayor. These are small lot sizes with plenty of homes and plenty of cars, and not a great deal in the way of public services, Madam Mayor, public transportation services. The $200 million that the state government has left for us holding the bag needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed now. And I call on my colleagues on all sides of the aisle to advocate strongly for our community, because this cannot go on into the future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Balloon?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I won't speak too long on this item, but I just wanted to make it clear that it's fantastic to hear in this chamber that other councillors, not just the North Ward councillors, are now and continue to talk about the growing issue in CP15 in Box Hill. As both Councillor Hazelden and Councillor Uno have just said, this is a significant issue for this council that is not getting any better. We are trying at all levels of government to make this work. We've continued our push for infrastructure in the Box Hill community. But again, as I've said many times before in this chamber and in community meetings, this isn't an issue that's been caused by this council, but it's one that we've been left with and expected to resolve with no external assistance. When I explain to those in the community where this all went wrong, I think it's very clear that when you look at the development in Gables, for example, and you look at the development in Box Hill, two very similar suburbs side by side, it just goes to show you what $500 million of upfront investment into major infrastructure delivers, and then the disaster and mess that you're left with, a contribution scheme that's not collecting enough, and you've got to make ends meet and deliver it. Bits and pieces here, you've got mum and dad developer there delivering 100 metres of road widening, you've got another developer over here, the middle section gets left for 10 years, you've got stormwater drainage that can't drain because someone won't sell a parcel of land, you've got a park that's half built because the other half can't be acquired. It's just, if anyone wants to change our planning system, I think you really need to look at what a contribution plan is, and there's so much room for improvement. Certainly a contribution plan that is able to deliver community assets such as aquatic centres, indoor rec facilities, community centres, all things that aren't able to be funded through a contribution plan, but yet council are expected to deliver. So it is music to my ears to hear other councillors talk about this growing issue. It is something we need to continue on as a council, because it's not going to resolve itself. The community are starting to come on board now and see that, okay, this isn't council's problem. We need to get behind council, and I think that's been a very welcome piece of information and of observation of the community. And I think what really brought that to the forefront was Fight for a Fairer Hills. We were able to, although we are yet to see any massive massive injection of funds into infrastructure in the hills, what I think what did play a fantastic role and certainly worth the money spent was an educational piece to our community. And we said as a council, residents, this is the issues that we are experiencing day on, day in, day out. But this is who's responsible. This is where they've originated, and this is the department or the agency or the government level that needs to resolve it. So I'll never stop talking about CP15 until it ends. I came onto this council in late 2021 where the deficit was 89 million. We're now at 210 and growing. It's not getting better, it's getting significantly worse. We are looking at other options for funding some projects and infrastructure, and we are making headway in acquiring land that we've been stuck with in the past. But I do think we do need to continue to put this on the forefront. The community of Box Hill don't deserve to be that third world community that they often feel. The traffic implications, lack of infrastructure, this council can only do so much. So let's keep on about CP15. It's not going to go anywhere unless we continue to do what we need to do, but we need to bring the community on the journey. So I thank councillors for your words on CP15, and I think we all need to, as a council, get behind it and make sure we get some resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blue. Councillor Gretzever, you wish to speak?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I would like to give an update community regarding Annan Grove Road that we discussed just now. So state government actually funded our council for the upgrades for Annan Grove Road through the infrastructure opportunity plans, and I will be listing those projects. These following projects: Annan Grove Road upgrade, Windsor Road to the Water Lane, Witness Road, upgrade to Annan Grove Road between Windsor Road and Water Lane and with the road to 4 lanes, including signalized intersection at Water Lane and with the road. Then we receive funding for delivery upgrade of the water line between Annan Grove Road and Nelson Road, including signalized intersection and roundabout. As well, we receive partially funding for delivery of with the road upgrade between Mile Road and Annan Grove Road to widen the road to each direction. So we have something delivered by the state government and considered by the state government in terms of infrastructure in our growing area. Second, I would like to echo what other councillors said in terms of our budget review, that our financial position remains positive. We're still projecting operation surplus 27 million and we remain debt-free. We are on track for delivering our capital work programs valued at 353 million across 244 projects, and which reflects the scale of growth we are managing. What particularly interesting in this review is the level of external funding we have secured in the partnership with helping us to deliver those outcomes. In terms of grants, Council has secured 761,000 from Australia government to support wage increase for early childhood education and care staff. We also receive additional 189,000 in grant funding for Hills community care programs due to growth in indexation. This allows us to expand services and continue supporting vulnerable residents in our community. In the environmental space, Council has received 357,000 from NSW Environment and Heritage for biobanking management across several reserves. Those funds will be set aside to support ongoing environmental management and conservation. Importantly, I want to acknowledge that work of our staff in securing those fundings. Grant applications are highly competitive, and in the fact that we continue to bring this level of external funding is credit to to their expertise and dedication. In addition to grants, voluntary planning agreements continue to deliver real infrastructure outcomes to our community. In this review, we've seen approximately 1.2 million, along with land dedication of approximately 210,000 in Northwest. They are practical, on-ground improvements that enhance connectivity and support growing neighborhoods. Those partnerships with developers are very critical to us. Ensuring that development occurs, it contributes directly to the infrastructure our community needs. This review also includes targeting investment in new projects that respond to our growth. We have allocated 130,000 to commence design works for the expansion of an embellishment of Chapman Avenue Reserve in Castle Hill, supporting increased demand for open space in the showground precinct. We also allocated 200,000 to undertake design work for broad walk along Samantha Raleigh Drive. Completing this design position, Council to seek funding for construction through NSW government Get NSW Active program in the next financial year. This is a great example of planning ahead and doing the design work now, so we are ready to secure external funding for delivery. Thank you to our executive team and our general manager for their strategic action and oversight. In closing, this budget review shows Council that is significantly financially strong, actively securing grants fundings and working in partnership with developers to deliver infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, Mr Edgar, didn't this council lend the state government $12 million in promised SIC funding for the upgrade at Annangrove Road?
Madam Mayor, through you, that's correct. So the Annangrove Road project from Edwards Road to Windsor Road is part what we used to know state infrastructure construction funding and part developer contribution funding. To get the project advanced, the council asked the government whether it would consider us giving a loan to enable the project to proceed to design and then tender. They agreed to that, and but at the end of the day, it'll be a cocktail of funds between developer contributions and state infrastructure contribution, which is another form of developer contribution levied by the state government.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Uno?
Can I just ask a question, please?
Yeah.
Through to
You've spoken, but you can ask
yes,
a question.
just through to Councillor Gritseva. Does the council acknowledge that there is gap funding? There is a problem with gap funding that has been created by successive state governments.
Councillor Gritseva.
Yeah, if we look at the report, I recommend that the community look at the dates and compare the information in the sources, relevant sources, which can confirm some type of activities. If we look at the page 31, the caps which been introduced earlier, the cap on all contribution plans have been removed 1st of January 2021. So after that, this is it's the time where our council got the actually infrastructure gap related to CP15. So it's not successive government who created this gap and this shortfall. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Jackson?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just a question to Councillor Gritseva. Were you saying that it wasn't successive governments that caused the issue in the removal of gap funding? Was that, I just didn't understand what you said a little bit earlier.
So if we're pointing who actually, if we're blaming who is, which government, actually under which government this gap funding actually created, it was under Liberal government.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks. I appreciate that clarification. And before I go into some of my comments, there was identification from the Liberal government and from my understanding of the shortfall. And my understanding was there was LGIS funding that was put forward, but the current state government is the one that withdrew that LGIS funding. So I don't think Councillor Gretseva's comments are accurate about where it is. Where the shortfall is. At the end of the day, Madam Mayor, the residents don't care. We've heard it loud and clear that they just want it fixed, they want it resolved. Councillor Blue especially has stood up at a number of Progress Association meetings and, you know, had been under the pump in some of the discussions that have been had. And even through the process, not just in that context, but also with the community, they see it as buck passing at the end of the day, and are just frustrated about moving into a suburb that they had grand hopes and dreams for themselves and their kids, and can't get out of it, are stuck in traffic constantly, also don't have sufficient number of parks to be able to play in or enjoy their recreation. So realistically, I'm I know that there's the tendency, even from myself at times, to talk about who did what and point the finger. But I think on CP15, that kind of boat has sailed, and we really need to get to a particular solution. I know in the business paper, I think it's on page 26, it talks about, not 26, another page, but it talks about CP15 and the different revisions. And I think revision D is the most recent one that went up to end 2024 that talked about the $207 million funding gap. That gap is continuing to widen. That's just in 2024. I can only imagine what that gap is at the moment. Madam Mayor, I remember the fight for Fairer Hills going to State Parliament, and after a day after this had occurred, Warren Kirby MP put a post up saying, tonight the Fairer Hills future petition was brought before the New South Wales
Madam Mayor,
Parliament.
point of order. 1028, we're discussing budget at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Madam Mayor, in our budget
sure
we
it's
talk
relevant.
about expenditure and the cost of the fight for Fairer Hills as put forward by a number of people in this chamber, and talked about the $120,000 cost. We had 20,000 residents through this campaign sign their signatures, and a comment on here, it says, in an area where the former Liberal government failed to build parks, play space and other essential infrastructure, should the Hillshire Council be spending $120,000 on a petition? Madam Mayor, we have a Member of Parliament directly saying that there was a failure to build things, and talking about the former Liberal government. At the end of the day, an admission from the New South Wales government to say that there was a failure, and with nothing provided to us in funding, which contributes to our budget, to be able to support that, I think it's an absolute failure. The fact that they've recognised it and then done nothing about it, it now sits with them. And when I talk about them, it's the current New South Wales government, regardless who happens to be sitting there. Because once again, I'll go back to my comments from the residents. They don't care who's sitting there, they just ultimately want it done. And realistically, as this carries on, it's going to cost us more and more money out of our budget for us as a council to be able to make up some of that shortfall, similar to what we have done through the SIC funding, to support and loan the government money to be able to get things done and outcomes for our residents. At the end of the day, Madam Mayor, directly connected to the budget is it's going to mostly fall with us. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to afford anything near what CP15 is requiring, and support the rest of our council at the same time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. And just for all your information, contributions in New South Wales were actually introduced by Premier Keneally in 2010. So technically it is successive governments that's landed us in this position, because successive governments could have changed the system, removed caps, etc., etc. But again, as Councillor Jackson has just said, not relevant. Community doesn't care. They just want to know who's going to fix the problem. Any further speakers? Councillor Hazelden, you're right to reply.
Look, it's not surprising that there's been some spirited debate about CP15, because the report makes quite substantial reference to the impact of CP15. And looking at the business paper, I was reminded of something, and I was talking to somebody earlier on this evening about it. Last week, because of the increase in the oil price, the price, Reece Plumbing, as a matter of public knowledge, increased the price of PVC pipes by 36%. This is the sort of inflationary effect which has driven the CP shortfall to 207 million today, and if continued, is likely to see this gap widen even further. And notwithstanding the nuances that Councillor Grefseva has brought to our attention, and the subtleties of what the state government to date have achieved and have contributed, the reality is this gap is still substantially there, and it cannot be funded by the ratepayers. It must and can only be funded by the state government of whatever persuasion. And I think, Madam Mayor, that's the nub of the argument and discussion about CP15. And Madam Mayor, I have nothing else to say. I'd like to just move the recommendation as. Thank you.
Thank you. We're on item 4, budget review as at the 28th of February 2016. We've got a motion moved by Councillor Hazelden, seconded by Councillor Grefseva. The recommendation contained in the report be adopted. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Calling for a division. Got 2 standing for a division. Great. Please be seated. Thank you very much. Councillors, if you can vote on your keypads, please.
All votes are in, Madam Mayor.
All votes are in. That is carried and it is unanimous. Usually I read the names out for the tape recording, but I can do that. Voting for the motion, Councillor Casby, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Blue, Councillor Bonham, Councillor Damasi, Councillor Jetty, Councillor Cox, Councillor Cartwright, Councillor Uno, Councillor Hazelden and Councillor Grazeva, with no councillors voting against that motion. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 8. Councillor Uno has declared a conflict of interest and is leaving the room. Oh, I forgot myself. I voted for that motion too.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
I forgot myself. I didn't say my own name.
We'll make sure that's recorded in the minutes.
I did say that he didn't. He's not here. Yeah. Yep.
The minutes will record.
It's always good when you forget your own name. Item 8, information and status reports. Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as per the business paper.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Grazeva. Councillor Blue, you wish to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will just turn councillors' attention to page 101 through to page 107, which is the ongoing saga of the Hills SES. And I do note that next week will be 9 years since that was brought to this chamber. Madam Mayor, this issue has a long-standing history in our Shire, and it's clear to our community and to this chamber through what has now been, this is now the 4th term of council that has addressed this issue, that something clearly needs to be done. This council in this very room recently held the annual SES Awards, and at those awards, I don't think there was one member that did not come up to a councillor or the mayor or staff who were present and talk to them about the ongoing topic of a new home for the SES. I was interested to learn that the Hills SES is the biggest unit in the state. They have recently received a new flood boat and another boat is on the way. One of them is currently parked outside and the other one doesn't, or the one that is to be delivered will not fit inside. Over a period of time, there's been a number of promises made. None of those promises have come to fruition. We have received a number of sites from the state government, or sorry, more aptly put, the departments in charge of those sites. Some of those sites included flood-constrained sites. I'm not sure whether that was a bit of a joke or not, but putting the SES in a flood-constrained site. Sites that were not able to have services provided to them, and sites that were in other shires, such as Blacktown. Not too sure that we want to be putting the Hills SES in Blacktown Shire. Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to see that in February of 2026, a working group was set up with SES Finance, Assets and Building Services, with regular meetings scheduled to progress the SES building designs. And in this issue of the information status reports, we have a new update of March 2026, being a report will be prepared for an upcoming councillor workshop detailing a preliminary design and costings for a new SES facility. Well, Madam Mayor, I think from what I can see here reading this report, I think we are heading in the right direction. We are making progress, and I'm interested to see what comes out of that workshop in March shortly. Madam Mayor, I won't stop talking about this, and I know that Councillor Jackson and I tag team on this each meeting, and it carries on from, I know Councillor Tony Hay in the last council was very vocal on this, as were councillors in the previous term to that as well. So I think it is important that we continue to do what we need to do to achieve an outcome here for the SES. It is a bit of a sorry state of affairs down there at the moment, but we do need to get this sorted. So let's keep the pressure on, keep the hard work going, and interested to see where this lands shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blue. Any further speakers? Councillor Hazelden.
Page 93, where it makes reference to the ongoing legal action that council is involved in over the Fred Caterson Reserve development. And I note with horror, Madam Mayor, their estimated cost to date, or established cost to date, are 163,000 or upwards of that, which doesn't take into account the other sunk costs that we have within council staff and attending to GIPA requests and the like. Madam Mayor, this is what happens when self-described activists get hold of a community a community event. This is the sort of thing that happened when the Harbour Bridge was blocked. This is the sort of thing, and forgive me the hyperbole, but there are parallels. This is what happened when the Port of Newcastle was blocked for quite some time over coal exports. And this is what happens when activists get hold of the Sydney Opera House steps and spew bile against a particular group in the community. This is an absurd situation, Madam Mayor. An aerial photograph of the Fred Caterson Reserve shows this very significant area of largely wooded bushland. On the perimeter of that, there is a playing field development, and we've talked at length in this chamber, privately and publicly, about the need for playing fields to be further developed. If you look at the aerial view, the amount of bushland that has to be cleared is of very, very small significance relative to the overall size of the overall bushland in Fred Caterson Reserve. And I remind everybody again, Madam Mayor, we are living in a city which is a global city. This is not a remote rural township. We are burdened with a colossal immigration impost which is affecting the Hills Shire as much as any other part of the city. And yet we find ourselves spending 164,000 plus of ratepayers' money in attempting to push forward an urgent need for our children to have further playing fields. I find this situation absolutely extraordinary, Madam Mayor. I could be silent no longer. I think this is a debate and an issue which has been utterly hijacked by a small disenchanted group in the community who are doing irreparable damage to the finances of this council and to the ratepayers. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelden. Any further speakers? No further speakers? Councillor
Yes,
Blue?
Madam Mayor.
Oh, you just got in there. Just. I'm in a good mood today.
And look, I'll be brief. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just busy writing some notes. I disagree. This is what happens when there is subpar, inadequate public consultation. The 36 submissions back in November or before that during the consultation period, which was during COVID lockdown, might I add, speak volumes that our community was not aware of this project. This is what happens when you don't properly inform or consult or talk to your community or bring them along with you. So, I mean, I don't know what Councillor Hazelden is talking about regarding activists. You only have to go on social media pages. You need to talk to the community at all sorts of events and receiving emails, phone calls. This is being generated by a very, very concerned community. And I personally think their connection to Fred Caterson Reserve and this piece of land and the nature that it supports has been completely undervalued and misinterpreted, misunderstood, I guess, by the council at the time. Council has been given multiple opportunities through petitions, notice of motions, community town halls, all sorts of things to come to the table with the community and have a conversation, and none of that has been taken up. So, yes, it's a disturbing amount of money, but this is what happens when you don't bring your community with you and when you don't talk to them. This community is very concerned about what's happening. They were told that the development would be in balance with nature. They feel like they are losing something. Their public land, their nature, potentially their access, we don't know at this stage. A huge loss of trees, traffic congestion, all sorts of things. They've got a lot of concerns. So I don't think that we can blame them for fighting for what really matters to them. So I really take umbrage at the assertions of Councillor Haselden. It is not a small group of activists. This is your community, and it's about time that you started listening to them.
Thank you, Councillor Casby, and just remind everyone this is not a debate about Fred Catterson. This is about the budget review, information and status reports. I don't want to descend into a debate on Fred Catterson tonight. There will be opportunities to do so later down the track when we get around to
Sorry, I just had
allocations
to
of
rebut the allegations that were brought up.
There's a range of views on Fred Catterson. I acknowledge that, but I think we should just leave it there. Any further speakers on the information and status reports?
Madam Mayor, I'll just add to Councillor Miller's remarks as well. Councillor Haselden says that it's a bunch of activists. These activists are communities, residents that reside around the Fred Catterson precinct, and they feel that their voices have not been heard, they've been ignored, and it's called democracy. So this is what happens when you ignore the community. It's called democracy, and these legal costs are the direct result. So I hope this would be a lesson for future cases, and hopefully there won't be one like this, that you do listen to the community, because it's high time. Thank you.
Thank you, and just, now we're getting off track, but it was an election issue twice.
Yes.
And the results were what they are, so there is a range of views.
Heartily agree,
on
Madam
this.
Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
I believe Councillor Cartwright's quite confused. This is called lawfare. It is where people use the legal system, not the democratic system, to achieve their ends. The democratic way would be, say, to have an election, which we did, and third-party campaigners campaigning on this very issue campaigned endlessly. I've never seen third-party campaigners at a state or federal election, let alone a local one, and these people were there every day at pre-poll telling everyone about the great crisis at Fred Catterson and how terrible it was, and it was going to be this foreign club and blah, 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 and all they were saying, and they're entitled to do that. And they did it, and it did not move the needle in the election. The same as when it was taken to the state election as an issue, and again, did not move the needle. The people have spoken in their votes, and that is democracy. And a democratically elected body making a decision is democracy. A group of people that enjoy a space, even, and saying, this is our space and you should have got to do what we want, is not democracy. People saying, you won't have these legal fees if you give in and give us what we want, is lawfare. They're threatening us with legal action to, that's the implication. Sorry, this has just gone through. To see people blocking a gate that they have no right to block, and then have the police called to move them, and then when two police come and say, please move, they won't. And so our already constrained police have to send 4 or 5 police officers to actually move them repeatedly, is a complete waste of police resources. It's not democratic, it's trying to achieve your outcome by force. The same people that say, sorry, I've already gone through that. This is probably the most consulted on item. It has been taken to elections twice, as said. There have been endless emails, usually full of misinformation that's spread by these activist groups. Things like, it's all about Eastwood. I saw one of the councillors talking in a social media video about how this was all about a club for Eastwood, blah, blah, blah. When we voted in this chamber, and right now that is not on the table, the MOU has expired. It might come back to that, but it's definitely not that now. But these people are quite happy to go out and lie to the community and say that it is happening now. These implications of losing access, etc., are just a joke. Seeing people use the last post or climbing on the bodies in the cemetery and the grieving people and using that as an excuse. I've not had a single person that goes to the cemetery to grieve raise this as an issue. It's only the people that have had a problem with it from day one. And they're quite happy to use any stick to beat this with. The whole thing's been stirred up on endless lies. The very first petition was talking about 54 hectares being cleared. In this chamber, councillors have talked about 7-metre fences to keep the community out, and then scoffed when people said, I don't think that's the case. And then in that same meeting being told and corrected, no, it's a 7-metre fence to stop balls going into the bushland, which is the basis of the concern. But that hasn't stopped them going on about fences. This has been the most grossly disgusting use of misinformation I've seen from the people in the community who are very concerned about this and apparently will do anything to achieve their ends. It's been taken to 2 elections and denied each time. It's been voted on in this chamber endlessly by the elected representatives of the people, and it is all the people in the Hills Shire, not just the people that are arcing up about it as a group. I think this has been just disastrous. On the state emergency service, I'm really sick of going on about it, but I have to say again, it is the state emergency service, and it'd be nice if the state could come to the party.
Thank you. Councillor Jetty.
Madam Mayor, respectfully, I would like to speak on the budget. And the point over here is that the costs of a particular item, as far as the legal matters go, has costed our ratepayers $163,594.27 so far, and still going ahead. Now, this money is not even any single elected councillor's piggy bank or a savings account. This money has been the ratepayers' money. This money is the one that is being spent, or as the councillors in this chamber said, well, this is what happens when you do so and so. Condoning this expenditure, supporting those organizations behind the scenes or on social media to enable them to have this kind of expenditure is on them. It is up to those councillors elected to go back and explain to the ratepayers that this money has come out from their pocket, hard-earned money, which these councillors in the other discussion say, oh, this is a lot of expense right now and our ratepayers need help. So on one side, this is their narrative. On the other side, the narrative is, this is what happens. I would like to also remind them that they have not brought forth one single suggestion or a money-making opportunity or strategy as the member. I would like to also remind our ratepayers, our residents, that out of more than 150,000 residents in this shire, the response was only 36. So for that, if this amount of $163,594.27 so far is warranted, and these elected councillors are condoning that, then they are up for bigger answers to our residents. So next time, when any resident asks us the question, what happened to my hard-earned money, and these councillors should be answering, and today's meeting should be put on notice. Thank you, Madam Mayor, but I, as an elected councillor, refuse to appreciate all the resources, all the man-hours, all the money that has been going towards this legal case as unwarranted and down the drain wasted, which could have been put towards a new footpath, a new parkway, a new cycleway, a new road, a new facility for our residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jetty. Any further speakers? Councillor Jackson? Councillor Blue moved it, so if you want to speak, here's your opportunity.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to take your advice and not let it be a debate on Fred Catterson, but after some of the comments made and the emphasis that a rebuttal needs to be put up. Before I kick off, a couple of questions to the General Manager. There was comments made that the consultation on Fred Catterson was subpar and inadequate. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager, has this run any differently to any other consultation with the community?
Mr Edgar.
Madam Mayor, through you, it followed the procedures and practice of the council at the time.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager, there was also a comment made that this happened during lockdown. Has any other lockdown decisions of council been brought back to the chamber with allegations of subpar consultation or the fact that it was during COVID?
Not to my knowledge, Madam Mayor.
No.
Thank you. I think it's clear to everybody here that Fred Catterson Reserve has a target on its back, and that the arguments put forward around subpar consultation and issues during lockdown are really just excuses to be able to put it on the table and for certain groups to be able to push a particular agenda. Madam Mayor, there was reference here to legal costs as a direct result of ignoring the residents, and that's just how it is, a comment made by Councillor Cartwright. Madam Mayor, we put $120,000, a budget of $120,000 to fight for Fairy Hills because there was a belief that the residents were ignored and we were criticised for it. This is less than the $163,000 that continues to climb, that through this process, they're absolutely guaranteed to get nothing. We are at least trying as a council to represent our entire community to be able to push that forward. There was a number of comments made earlier around bring the community along with you, generated by a concerned community. This is your community. Voices not heard, we're ignoring the community. I think, Madam Mayor, the challenge is when certain voices are very loud, it's easier to believe that they make up the majority of the community. But as already contested earlier, this went to 2 elections and didn't get anywhere. As a council, and as councillors, we have a responsibility to represent our entire community, not just a couple of loud voices. And I think loud voices that have put out, as described earlier, lies within the community that has created distress for our residents. We've had people write to us saying that they're crying because of some of the information that has been put out in the community. We have a responsibility as community leaders and a requirement by law to represent our entire community, not just a small group of people that think that Fred Catterson is their own backyard and they have every right to it. Madam Mayor, I honestly believe that many of those that are pushing this agenda forward have particular strong beliefs that they believe that they need to push forward around the protection of Fred Catterson. But as a council, we need to represent the entire community. And I'll keep pushing this till the end of days. And the challenge here is $163,000 plus. Who knows when this is going to finish? When we've got a particular court outcome that is still pending, and there's always a possibility through that process that this is allowed to continue in its present form. I don't think it serves our entire community well, and I don't think that once they understand truly what's happening through this process and the ultimate cost, will be very disappointed about what this has cost them, pushed by a particular group. And Madam Mayor, as described, other councillors that have been on social media talking about this same thing that was supported in council. I haven't seen, after the most recent council motion of 3 fields being put, I haven't seen any further motions to try and retract that or change that. As it stands, there's 3 fields being built, and as already outlined, there's an expired MOU, and we'll see what happens when it comes to council. I think we also have a requirement to gather all the information that we believe is necessary through the appropriate processes and not make any decisions until it comes to council. But councillors very much have to remember, as I do, that nothing is final until the council has voted on it and the motion has been put forward, and we shouldn't be making any ultimate determinations before we have all the information to be able to progress with that. And one thing I want to emphasise, Madam Mayor, is lamenting the specific costs. I haven't seen anything put out into the community asking them what they support and what they don't support. rather than just going along with, with what a couple of people have said. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
Just have a question.
Councillor Casby, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you. My question's through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager. I just wanted to know, were any letters sent out to local residents regarding this development project, and how many have your say social media reminders were put out to remind people to have their say during this consultation period back in 2020?
Madam Mayor, I don't recall that. We would have, usually the custom and practice in that particular time was to publicise it on Have Your Say website, newspapers, our own social media. I don't recall we would have written to direct residents. I know we did some consultation with user groups, but I don't believe that there was a direct mail out. I could be incorrect on that, and I'll stand corrected if that is, but I don't.
No, I think that's correct. There was no direct mail out, but there was also no Have Your Say reminders on social media, which, if you compare it to other proposals, it's quite stark, the difference.
Got a point of order, Councillor Cox?
Not a point of order, a question for the General Manager through you.
Yes.
Is a community consultation binding on a council if local people nearby a development don't like it, or can we make a decision for the whole community? So even if a group of people had said they didn't like it, it wouldn't affect a thing.
No, it's not. It's a matter for council. And I can't even recall from the top of my head what the nature of the submissions might have been back then, either in support or otherwise. But notwithstanding that, ultimately, it's a matter for council how it proceeds.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Bonham.
I just wanted to follow on from Councillor Cox's comments. Fred Cadison was brought to 2 elections, and in spite of a really robust and noisy campaign by those who opposed the master plan, people basically said, we don't care. They voted to go ahead with the plan. That's democracy. So I just wanted to follow up on Councillor Hazelton's comments. I think it's a disgrace, $164,000, and that's just legal fees. I dread to imagine how much the important staff members who are spending time, they're being taken away from their important functions to basically going on a fact-finding mission, going through records, God knows how they're going to find them. Half of them are probably, inaccessible almost. Well, I'm sure they'll find them somehow. In any case, there's so much time, and all that staff time costs money. So we don't really know the cost of this exercise. I really just think it's a disgrace, it's a shame, and we shouldn't have been pursuing it from the outset. The people spoke at the elections, and that should have been the end of it.
Thank you, Councillor Bonham. Any further speakers? No further speakers. Councillor Blue, you're right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, what I thought I was speaking tonight on was our SES and trying to resolve that situation. But here we are, yet again, we've been drawn into the Fred Cadison debate. Well, councillors, I'm not going to debate Fred Cadison. I'm going to talk about some other things. I'm going to talk about community engagement. I've been criticised as a councillor for not listening to my community. I've been criticised for voting on a block and supporting something because someone else has said to do so. Well, councillors, I'll turn your mind back to February 2022. The then state government revised the Code of Meeting Practice, which recommended strongly that community forum be removed from the council Code of Meeting Practice. Along with Councillor Tony Hay, I moved a motion that council moved forward with progressing and developing a new community engagement strategy. If I didn't genuinely care what the community thought, do you think I'd be moving such a motion? Keep that in your mind. We can spend so much time over the last couple of years debating the twos and fros, backs and forwards, and every time we possibly see the word Fred Cadison, we decide we want to debate about it. Councillors, I just want to talk to you about a couple of things that we have in front of us as a council body that we really need to be focusing on. We spoke earlier on a $209 million deficit in the Box Hill contribution plan. We're being walked all over by the state government planning decisions, seeing an influx of people coming into this community without infrastructure. We've got ever-increasing housing targets with no end, but yet we barely say anything about it. We spend so much wasted time going back and forward over this same issue time and time again. I wouldn't mind doing that if the view of the community as a whole was different. But when you've got half of our community being blindly led upon by misinformation, and I will use the word misinformation, when a resident calls me up and asks me about this proposal and I talk them through it, they go, oh, but that's not what I read. Of course it's not, because that story doesn't sell. Councillors, I'm sick to death of hearing about Fred Caterson. I'm sick to death of debating the same thing. I moved a motion in this chamber a couple of months ago that we progressed with building 3 community level playing fields. If the people in the community can't understand that we're working on the current motion or the current resolution of this council, then I'm sick and tired of explaining it. That's what we're building. If anything changes in the future, it needs to come to this chamber, and the whole 13 of us and that whole gallery there would get an opportunity to have their say. But this is where the decision is made. Not because of what someone's read on Facebook, not because of what someone's dreamt up, and not because of a bloody light pole, how tall a power pole is. I'm sick and tired of it, and I'm not going to waste any more time. We've got some significant issues to deal with in this council, so let's focus on what's important and get down to doing what we're here to do and representing the whole community, not just a small group.
Thank you, Councillor Blue. We're on item 8, information and status reports. We've got a motion moved by Councillor Blue and seconded by Councillor Grazieva that the recommendation contained in the report be adopted. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? It's carried. Thank you, councillors. Can we ask Councillor Uno to rejoin us? He's been waiting very patiently. Thank you. We now move to closed council. The Hillshire Council is committed to open government and decision making. Some matters do, however, require confidentiality and therefore the exclusion during the discussion of the press and public. The nature of these matters is set out in Section 10A, Clause 2 of the Local Government Act 1993. Councillors, can I have a motion that the press and public be excluded from the proceedings of closed council in respect of items 9 and 10 pursuant to the relevant clauses of Section 10A, Clause 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, and 2, council withhold access to items 9 and 10 in accordance with the Section 11(2) of the Local Government Act. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Damasi, second by Councillor Cox. Is there any debate? No debate. I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. As against, it's carried. Thank you, councillors. Shut the doors. Turn off the camera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are we rolling? We're back on? Okay, thank you. Councillors, we met in closed session of council to consider 2 items. First one being item 9, procurement of Technology One Digital Experience Platform DXP. Council has resolved that council approves the procurement of the Technology One DXP module through a variation to the existing Technology One SaaS agreement. And item 10 being the domestic waste tenders, and we'll need to be a bit patient here, Madam Mayor and councillors. Council has resolved that 1, RFT T25-0081, waste collection services. Roman numerals, no, it's not, it's little 1, I guess is how we would say that. 1 is council receives the confidential tender evaluation report, in brackets report, for RFT T25-0081 RFT. 2, council resolves in accordance with section 178(1)(b) of the Local Government General Regulation 2021 New South Wales, in brackets regulation, to decline to accept any of the tender submissions submitted in response to the RFT. 3, council resolves in accordance with section 178(3)(e) of the regulation to enter into negotiations with the persons identified in the report as nominated persons in respect of the RFT and in the manner described in the report, with a view to entering into a contract in relation to option 1 of the RFT, being a contract for waste collection service for initial service term of 10 years, including for the collection of garden organics until 30th June 2030, followed by the collection of food and garden organics from 1 July 2030 and for the remainder of services term, and with extensions as detailed in the contract. 4, in accordance with section 178(4)(a) of the regulation, council's reasons for declining to invite fresh tenders as referred to in subsection 178(3)(b)(d) of the regulation are that A, it's not expected that further market testing will provide a more satisfactory result, and B, it is anticipated that a satisfactory result can be achieved through negotiating with one or more of the nominated persons in the manner described in the report. 5, in accordance with section 178(4)(b) of the regulation, council's reasons for determining to enter into negotiations with the nominated persons are that A, council is satisfied that each of the nominated persons would be capable of undertaking the relevant services, pending conditions being achieved as nominated in the report, and B, it is anticipated that a satisfactory outcome can be achieved through negotiations with one or more of the nominated persons. 6, council authorises the general manager to negotiate with one or more of the nominated persons in the manner described in the report for the purpose of entering into a contract in relation to the subject matter of the RFT option 1. 7, council resolves that any draft contract arising from the negotiations with the nomination persons be tabled before council for resolution prior to contract execution. Resolution 2 is in relation to RFT T25-0076 garbage disposal processing services. 1, council receives the confidential tender evaluation report, in brackets report, for RFT T25-0076 RFT. 2, council resolves in accordance with section 178(1)(a) of the Local Government General Regulation 2021 New South Wales, in brackets regulation, to accept the conforming tender submission from Cleanaway Proprietary Limited, submitted in response to the RFT with respect to option 1 of the RFT, being a contract for garbage disposal services for initial services term of 5 years, with extensions as detailed in the contract. 3, council resolves in accordance with section 178(1)(b) of the regulation to decline to accept any of the tender submissions submitted in response to the RFT with respect to options 3 and 4 of the RFT, being contracts for garbage processing services with initial service terms of 10 and 15 years respectively. 4, council resolves in accordance with section 178(3)(e) of the regulation to enter into negotiations with the persons identified in the report as nominated persons in respect of options 3 and 4, and in a manner described in the report with a view to entering into a contract in relation to either of those options, being a contract for garbage processing services with an initial services terms of 10 or 15 years and extensions as detailed in the contract. In accordance with section 178(4)(a) of the regulation, Council's reasons for declining to invite fresh tenders for option 3 or option 4 of the RFT as referred to in subsections 178(3)(b) through to D of the regulation are that A, it's not expected that further market testing will provide a more satisfactory result, and B, it is anticipated a satisfactory result can be achieved through negotiating with one or more of the nominated persons in the manner described in the report. 6, in accordance with section 178(4)(b) of the regulation, Council's reasons for determining to enter in negotiations with the nominated persons are that A, Council is satisfied that each of the nominated persons would be capable of undertaking the relevant services pending approvals and conditions being achieved as nominated in the report, and B, it is anticipated a satisfactory outcome can be achieved through negotiations with one or more of the nominated persons. 7, Council authorises the General Manager to negotiate with one or more of the nominated persons in the manner described in the report for the purpose of entering into a contract in relation to the subject matter of RFT option 3 or option 4. Council resolves that 8, Council resolves that any draft contract arising from the negotiations with the nominated persons for option 3 or option 4 be tabled before Council for resolution prior to contract execution. Point 3, in relation to RFT T250079 Organics Processing Services. 1, Council receives the confidential tender evaluation report in brackets report for RFT T25-0079 in brackets RFT 2. Council resolves in accordance with section 178(1)(a) of the Local Government General Regulation 2021, New South Wales Regulation, to accept the conforming tender submission from Cleanaway Proprietary Limited, submitted in response to the RFT with respect to option 1 of the RFT, being a contract for organic processing services for an initial services term of 10 years, with extensions as detailed in the contract, noting that the services will be for the receipt and processing of garden organics up to the 30th of June 2030, followed by services for the receipt and processing of food and garden organics from 1st of July 2030 and for the remainder of the services term. 4, in relation to RFT T25-0077, recycling process services. 1, Council receives the confidential tender evaluation report in brackets report for RFT T25-0077 in brackets RFT. 2, Council resolves in accordance with section 178(1)(b) of the Local Government General Regulation 2021, New South Wales Regulation, to decline to accept any of the tender submissions submitted in response to the RFT with respect to option 1 and option 2 of the RFT, being contracts for recycling processing services with initial services terms of 10 and 15 years respectively. 3, Council resolves in accordance with section 178(3)(e) of the regulation to enter into negotiations with the persons identified in the report as nominated persons in respect of options 1 and 2, and in the manner described in the report, with a view to entering into a contract in relation to option 1, being a contract for recycling processing services with initial services term of 10 years with extensions as detailed in the contract. 4, in accordance with section 178(4)(a) of the regulation, Council's reasons for declining to invite fresh tenders as referred to in subsections 178(3)(b) to D of the regulation are that A, it's not expected that further market testing will provide a more satisfactory result, and B, it is anticipated that a satisfactory result can be achieved through negotiating with one or more of the nominated persons in the manner described in the report. 5, in accordance with section 178(4)(b) of the regulation, Council's reasons for determining to enter into negotiations with the nominated persons are that A, Council is satisfied that each of the nominated persons would be capable of undertaking the relevant services, pending conditions being achieved and as nominated in the report, and B, it is anticipated a satisfactory outcome can be achieved through negotiations with one or more of the nominated persons. 6, council authorises the general manager to negotiate with one or more of the nominated persons in the manner described in the report for the purposes of entering into a contract in relation to subject matter of RFT option 1. And 7, council resolves that any draft contract arising from the negotiation with nominated persons for option 1 be tabled before council for resolution prior to contract execution. 5, in relation to RFT T25-0080, bulky waste disposal processing services. 1, council receives the confidential tender evaluation report for RFT T25-0080 RFT. And 2, council resolves in accordance with section 178(1)(a) of the Local Government General Regulation 2021 New South Wales to accept the conforming tender submission from Cleanaway Proprietary Limited submitted in response to the RFT with respect to option 1 of the RFT being a contract for bulky waste disposal services for an initial services term of 10 years with extensions as detailed under the contract. And Madam Mayor, if I can just assist any councillor who wants me to secure and dispose of those confidential matters, let me know, I can assist. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Edgar. Meeting closed 9:08.